cuties, it's Bonnie here. Welcome to my studio. Right now we're in my cutting alcove. This is where I do my pinning of my quilt body to, my securing of my quilt body to the batting and backing. This is also where I would attach my leader cloths to my quilt body. And so I had promised earlier to do a demonstration of attaching the leader cloth to my quilt body. So for that, what you need is, of course, your quilt sandwich that's already been, your quilt that's already been sandwiched, and any basting that you're going to do to that, whether it's spray basting, baste gun basting, or pin basting. I have already been working on this quilt. When you see this in the video, you're going to see that this is the Bargello that I've been working on. But for this purpose, it's just as good to show you how to do that. So you need measuring tape, the quilt body, the leader cloths. Now my leader cloths are handmade. I have a top leader cloth and a bottom leader cloth. I won't be using the bottom leader cloth. I'm just going to demonstrate the top. Mine is a handmade leader cloth. What you'll notice on my leader cloth is it's marked in 1 inch increments going up the leader cloth, and it's marked every foot in numbered every foot, and then every 4 inches rather within that foot, it's also marked. That's just for me to be able to measure and use leveling. And any leader cloth that you get needs to have some sort of marking for that kind of purpose. Since this is a handmade leader cloth and I'm very familiar with it, I have my center marked as 0. So I'm going to lay that out. I'm just going to splay that out over the entire table and let it hang off, keeping my center right here in my work area. So these are my number 2 curved pins. I'm going to choose to use those to baste. You can baste hand based, gun based. What you cannot do to attach your leader cloth to your quilt body is use spray basting. It's not going to be strong enough. So I'm going to set these over here a little bit. Got a measuring tape because I'm going to measure my quilt body. I also have a ruler that's 2 inch in depth. Now, because this is the Bargello that I've been using, on this particular quilt body, I had an excess of batting and backing. But for our example, I'm just going to assume that I had cut that 2 inches away from the quilt body. It has to be straight. But I'm going to fold it under, but we're going to assume that I had already cut that using my rotary cutter 2 inches across, measuring with my. All right. Now, before I can begin attaching my quilt body to the leader cloth, I have to find the center of my quilt body. I happen to know this quilt body is 64 inches. But if I didn't know, I'd measure from the side of the quilt body to the other side of the quilt body, ignoring any excess batting and backing behind my sandwich. So let me find the 32 inches, which is half of 64. So from the edge of my quilt body to its center, which is 32 inches, I'm going to mark that with one of my curved pins. And so now that I have both the center known on my leader cloth and the center marked on my quilt body, I'm going to match those up and overlap the quilt body, the backing and batting of the quilt body, onto the leader cloth by 1 inch. Now, the reason why I choose 1 inch is that gives me the ability to not have leader cloth coming up underneath my quilt body to get quilted into my work. So that is why you leave 2 inches of excess batting and backing on your quilt body, and you have that 1 inch mark on your leader cloth. And so I'll bring the centers together, and I'll take the center of my quilt body, go 1 inch into the leader cloth, and remove that pin and pin the quilt body to the leader cloth. Leader cloth can go under or on top, but I prefer it under. Then I will move from side to side in 1 foot increments. So I'll go to the left side and pin at the 1 foot mark, and I'll go to the right and pin in 1 foot increments. Now the reason why I do that from side to side is to continue maintaining the quilt body levelly on that 1 inch mark on my leader cloth. So I'm going to pause out and get my quilt measured out, pinned all the way across. So I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so I'm back and I have everything pinned out. Now, if you'll remember, I was pinning every foot. And the reason why I went from side to side every foot was to keep it level on my leader cloth. But at this point then, I would go in between each pin and pin another pin, because I know that a foot apart, those pins are not going to be sufficient to keep the quilt body level, firmly attached in my quilt frame, because it's going to create gaps, where you have these bubbles. But every 6 inches should be good enough. If it's not, you can always add more pins. So I'm just going to pin this 1/2 to show you what I do with the overhang of my quilt. And this is why I like working on a flat surface that I can slide things around, because I can slide things around. Just like on your hooping frame, you want to work in sections that you can control. So, as I said, my leader cloths are 11 feet long, but this is only 48, my quilt body is only 64 inches wide. So I have all this excess. So what I'm going to do is come out here 6 inches past the quilt body and fold that in half, cord to cord, because my side that goes towards the frame is corded. You don't have to have a cord. Now that I have that folded cord to cord, or frame side to frame side, if you will, I'll bring up the bottom end of the leader cloth, and I'll bring up the center of the leader cloth. The reason why I'm doing that is I'm going to pin these together to keep them out of the way, so that I don't inadvertently sew my leader cloth to my quilt body. Now there's a couple of ways you can handle that. You can have multiple sized leader cloths to handle every variety of quilt size that you might use, or you can do it the way I'm doing it and just secure those pieces that you won't be, that bit of the leader cloth that you won't be using out of your way. And once that's secured, I can turn around and shift my quilt body in the other direction and do exactly the same thing. It's just add those extra pins, wrap the leader cloth out of the way, bring the loose end of the leader cloth up and the center of the leader cloth up, pin it, and it's out of your way. Once you've done all that, you're ready to take it to your frame and put it on your cutie or your Q-zone. I hope that has been beneficial for you. Cuties, quilt on. Bye-bye.